Warning, despite the subject matter at the focus of these videos, my reviews are not intended for viewers under the age of 13, so if you're not of age, turn off the video now. Are they gone? Great, let's get to the intro already. Oh boy, here we go. So usually around this time in the show, I would be gearing up for the 5-month hiatus that is to follow this episode and talking about how it's important to end on a cliffhanger so that viewers are compelled to tune in when the show returns. However, since I'm so horribly behind on this show, and I know that I'll be getting to the next episode in a week, I'd much rather talk about how this is the first piece of new Beast Morphers content I've consumed in months. After so much time, I'm excited to see what the rest of this show has in store, and that couldn't have happened at a better time since the show looks like it's getting ready to take a big step forward in story progression. I mean, the last episode ended with Scruzzle talking about this big bad Cybergate, and this episode has Cybergate in the title, so it's safe to assume we're in for something special. Personally, I'm just hoping for something that's a little grander than the smaller character episodes I've looked at over the past few weeks. Will this show deliver? Well, let's find out as we look at Power Rangers Beast Morphers, Episode 8, The Cybergate Opens. The episode opens with Ben testing out Nate's new tracking device by playing hide and seek with Betty. Yes, seriously. Ben eventually finds Betty hiding in the Grid Battle Force ice cream machine, as you do, which leads to her getting covered in the stuff. Later, Nate finishes working on some weapon prototypes that he plans on upgrading with animal DNA, but before he can get a sample outside, the Rangers stop him. As per Commander Shaw's orders, Nate isn't allowed to leave the base unsupervised, which is a rule I completely forgot about because it's been so long, so the Rangers offer to keep Nate company outside. Meanwhile, in an abandoned warehouse, Scruzzle's hard at work completing the Cybergate and tells Blaze and Roxy Evox will need a robot body to upload his data into after he passes through the gate. Unfortunately, Scruzzle doesn't know how to build a robot strong enough to contain the villain and orders Blaze and Roxy to capture Nate Silva so he can build the bot. Blaze and Roxy are more than happy to do the task because of how easy it'll be before we cut back to Nate scanning a praying mantis. Once he gets the mantis DNA, Nate looks for another insect to scan, but freaks when Zoe brings him a spider because he hates them. Nate then sees a scarab beetle, but before he can scan it, the Rangers are called in to deal with the Robotron, so Devin tells Nate to head back to the base. Nate pushes back on this a little before saying he'll head back, but not before he finishes scanning the beetle by himself. This turns out to be a bad move, however, since Blaze and Roxy appear and immediately capture the scientist, damaging Nate's communicator in the process. While that's going on, Vacutron is in the city, draining cars of their Morph-X and collecting it in oil drums. The Rangers arrive to stop the Robotron, but when it immediately starts blasting them, they morph into action. Vacutron sends Tronics at the Rangers before leaving with the truckload of Morph-X, and we cut to Ben and Betty trying to figure out what movie to see. Since they don't have a coin, Ben ends up flipping the tracker tag just as Vacutron passes them, and the tracker lands on the truck as it continues to speed off. Ben and Betty chase after the truck, trying to get the tracker back, but end up rolling on oil drums that Vacutron threw at them. Back with Blaze and Roxy, they take Nate to the warehouse, where Scruzzle informs the scientist why they brought him there, and while Nate at first refuses to help the villains, he decides to play dumb for now. Back with the Rangers, they scour the city in search of Vacutron, but when they don't find anything, they head back to GB, only to find that Nate is missing. Surprisingly, the Rangers are more worried about Nate than Commander Shaw, who now says that Nate can handle himself, even though she told him specifically not to leave the base by himself. Whatever. Ben and Betty enter to tell Shaw that they lost the tracker tag, but Devin realizes they can use the tag to find the villains and Nate, so Shaw thanks the duo for their help. Speaking of Nate, the scientist finishes the robot for the Cybergate just as the Rangers find the warehouse, but before they can get inside, the team gets into a fight with Vacutron. It's a tough fight too, since the Rangers end up getting their asses kicked by this damn strong Robotron. Inside the warehouse, Scruzzle activates the Cybergate, but before Evox can be fully downloaded into the robot, Nate teleports a blaster into his hand equipment and shoots the cybergate. The resulting explosion severs the gate's connection to the cyberverse, forcing Evox back into the digital wasteland. While the generals try to gather themselves after the explosion, Nate activates the Morph-X into the neural aligner and stands under it while holding the insect DNA he collected earlier. The Morph-X bonds the insect DNA to Nate, which means he is now the Gold Ranger. But that's not even the best part.
No way! You just morphed!
Oh, is that what happened? Fantastic! I am amazing!
Right you are, Silver. Right you are. Scruzzle gets out of dodge before Nate hands a blaster to Silver, and the two proceed to take on Blaze and Roxy. After an impressive showcase of strength, Blaze and Roxy retreat, so Nate and Silver head outside to help the other Rangers, where Nate reveals his identity to the team. In the Cyberverse, Blaze orders Scruzzle to send out a Gigadrone, and even though he's annoyed with the Avatars for supposedly lying to him, Scruzzle ultimately does so. Devin, Ravi, and Zoe leave Vacutron to Nate and Silver so they can take out the Gigadrone, and the next 2.5 minutes are filled with two badass fight scenes that end with the Rangers victorious in the Megazord and on the ground. After the fight, the Rangers head back to GB and ask the Silver Ranger what they should call him. He picks the name Mr. Fantastic, Super Handsome, Strong as Steel, which Nate shortens to just Steel. Devin then asks how Steel was able to morph, but before Nate can finish his explanation, Steel says,
I'm human!
Turns out that Morph-X bonded his systems to Scarabeetle DNA and to my DNA.
Yes, making me the perfect Ranger.
That is very, very cool. The Rangers apologize to Nate for underestimating him all this time, and Devin welcomes Silver and Gold to the Ranger team. Cut to Scruzzle, who informs Evox he can fix the Cybergate, and the episode ends with the villains planning to capture Steel, so Evox will have his robot body back. This episode is fucking awesome. I'm a sucker for great Power Rangers action and a strong 6th Ranger introduction, and thankfully that's what most of this episode amounts to. It's great to see the Rangers in a tough fight, especially with how much they've been walking through bad guys over the past couple of episodes. Sadly, Nate becoming a Ranger had been spoiled for me by Twitter a long time ago, but luckily the episode plays it as something that was always meant to happen, with Nate already working on the new tech and even scanning different animal DNA. Come to think of it, I'm surprised the other Rangers couldn't figure out what Nate's plan was. Maybe they thought he was trying to build new Zords for them, but that'd be more believable if Nate had given them new animal Zords before this happened. He might have even planned to do that too, since he told the Rangers that the Gold Ranger tech was in the prototype phase, and I'd totally buy it if it turns out he had to accelerate his plans after getting captured by Scruzzle. After all, he found his prototype Beast bot in the warehouse along with the neural aligner, so I mean he had everything he needed to complete the project. And yes, I did just refer to Steel as Nate's Beast bot, because I fully believe that Nate only intended for the bot to be his Zord friend. However, with Nate standing so close to Steel during the DNA bonding, while also holding the second set of insect DNA, he inadvertently turned Steel into a Ranger. I couldn't be happier with this turn of events, because Steel becoming the Silver Ranger is the real surprise of this episode, and I love everything about this guy. The unreal level of confidence he has right out of the gate, coupled with that absolutely epic hero voice, instantly made him my favorite Ranger of this show. I wonder if Steel's personality is a byproduct of him being bonded with Nate's DNA. We found out in the last episode that Beastbots need to have their personalities programmed into them, and I highly doubt Scruzzle had any kind of programming tech inside the warehouse. After all, the generals only needed a body for Evox to inhabit, plus I like the idea that Steel's overconfidence comes from a dormant side of Nate's personality, kind of like that one episode of Dino Thunder where the Dino Teen's dormant personalities take over. Only here, the neural aligners split Nate's personality in two. I realize this is a totally out there theory, but it would be cool to see, especially if we get an episode down the line where Nate switches personalities with Steel. And even if the show doesn't go that route, there's still plenty of stories you can mine, with Nate adjusting to having a brother, which isn't easy. There's also that little thing about the villains wanting to still use Steel as Evox's Earth body, so there's a lot of places that Beast Morphers can go with this character. Overall, this is a fantastic episode of this show. While the moral of not underestimating people is a little muddled because of Commander Shaw's weird character shift, that doesn't change how much I enjoy enjoyed watching this one. Every character besides Shaw is used to utter perfection, with Ben and Betty still being useful comic relief rather than annoying, and Steele is so awesome he makes up for the episode's one flaw. I'd call this my favorite episode of the season if I wasn't going through this show so fast, but either way, it gets a high recommendation from me. I'm Nick, aka IronBet1993, and may the power protect you.